I'm back to working on this one, and I'll show you what I've done so far and what I still need to do. I started, first of all, I'm going to be using this fabric, for the background, which means it will be behind in these areas here. This is the fabric that you will see. This is the fabric. This fabric will stay, and hopefully I'll be able to get this piece that's missing here out of this piece here, and the bottom piece here out of this. Now on the other side, I'm trying to use, this fabric is moire, the same as this, though it's not moire Thale, it's not the watermarked. This is an ivory color, and it's rather close. I think it's close enough. And if I need to gray it up a little bit because this is so dirty, I can use, by putting a piece of gray fabric underneath it, I can actually make it look grayer. So if I use this as in the interlining, it would not only stiffen it a little bit, but it would also make it look grayer. This is really dirty down here. It'd have to come up. Up here is better. You can see it looks a little bit closer to. On the other side though, because you won't see this and this at the same time, you won't notice if there is a subtle difference between the two. And then this will go on this fabric, which will be a nice contrast between the two. All right, now the other problem that I had with this, again, was this trim is no longer available. But I did find this trim, which is a basket weave trim like this, and if I put it on top of a burgundy velvet ribbon, I'm really close to the two of them looking the same. So the trim that comes, I may end up using this all the way around the edge on both sides, and the trim that was here, which I took off, this trim that I took off, which is a little bit narrower but not much, I can use in the places where the trim is missing here and still match this. So I have this piece of trim and this piece of trim that I took off, and hopefully it will be enough to do what's missing here and what's missing at the bottom here. On the other side and around the edges, I'll be using the new trim. Now, so that's the materials that I plan to use. All right, the first step, of course, is to take it apart and to see what I have. This is the lining that was on the other side. This is a silk lining, and I will keep this. I will try to get another lining that's close to this color, which is never difficult. I mean, this is a regular burgundy. I can get something very close to this. But I will keep this and return it with the vestment so that they will have these labels if they want to put them on it to show where it came from originally. Now the interlining in this was this. I've never seen this kind of interlining before. It's almost like a burlap. It's kind of like what the Japanese use. It's almost like a paper, a rice paper, but it's thicker. It's thickly woven, but it's very flat. It's shiny on this side, but not on this side. And there is a stiffness to it, almost like paper. Of course, I can't get any more of this. I mean, maybe I could get rice paper, put it in. I will be probably using either muslin or this gray. I'm not sure. But something that it is a little bit stiff, so something that is a little stiff to stiffen it. Now, all right, so there also is a second layer of fabric in here. You can't see it. It's sewn together here at the edge. But there are 2 layers of fabric. This is a muslin, a very thin weight muslin that they have attached to the regular fabric. And they went through both layers. They used this to stay as their stabilizer to stabilize the embroidery here. The embroidery goes through both layers of this fabric. Now, I am going to have to cut this out. So my first job, and I haven't taken these trims off yet, and I may not even do that. My first job was to stabilize the parts on here that I will be cutting around. So I took some, in this case I used Loctite Power Grab all-purpose glue. I have in the past used Well Bond. This is a white glue, but it's thick, it's not runny. It dries very quickly. I could have used the Beacon, but the Beacon tends to be pretty thick and dry a little bit faster than I really wanted with this. So I put this out on a plate, and I used a brush, thin paintbrush, and I painted the glue all around the edge. And I specially painted these embroideries here in the corner, because what's going to happen is I'm going to cut around these, and I don't want the fabric to fray as I cut around all of these. These are, if it was just the everything behind inside of this trim, I probably wouldn't have even done that. But there are places where it comes all the way out. And so because I want to cut close to this, and I don't want to have the edges fray, and especially these pieces that are embroidered on the fabric but are outside the trim lines, I wanted to be able to cut those as well. So what I've done is I've gone in and, as I say, I put glue down to stabilize this. I've done this before with other vestments of a similar nature. Now these at the neckline, once I undid the trim, I found that there is actually a complete piece here. This one has a little bit longer, another embroidery piece on here, but it's all there. It's all entirely there. I may cut this off here to make it the same as this one, or I may add that piece onto this one. I haven't decided that yet. But these pieces are separated from this piece. But so I did put glue entirely over the whole piece so that I can cut them out and put them back down on the new vestment without having to redo them, the embroidery on them. So my next step now at this point is to cut everything out. And I've loosened these trims here, but I probably won't lift them. I'll probably cut right at the edge of these trims and then trim all the way around here, just so nothing distorts. And then the next step after that will be to do these embroideries on the pieces that I take off here and see how they fit in. All right, so that's where I am right now. And my next step is to cut this out, and then I will show you what it looks like once it's cut out. Okay, so I've cut out the applique, I guess you would call that the embroidery. This is the fabric that I have left. This piece is large enough to do this area right here. Which is where this piece would go. This, however, this fabric is not large enough to do as much as what I need down here, which is about that much. So I'm going to have to make it shorter. I'm going to have to make the design, I'm going to have to shorten the design to about something like this. Unless I could go this long if I took a piece out of this and put it in here. I'll have to think about that. The most that would go is, as it is right now, is about 12, not quite 12 inches, 11 inches. I could go up to 11 inches. The design actually called for about 16 inches, so I'm still going to be about 5 inches short, but that would still be, it still would be a nice design. It wouldn't be too short. Even if I went up to here, it still would be okay. Not ideal, but it still would be okay. So I'll have to work on that and redo this design down here. These are the embroideries that I took off around the neck, and I'll just put those aside for that. For the front, I'm going to start working on the front. This is the print off of the design for the front, and this is where it will go in the hoop. There's another hoop above this, and there's 2 hoops below this to do the front. So the next step with this would be to cut it all the way out. I would leave the paper on the back, spray it with adhesive, and stick it down in this area right here, and then do the embroidery on top of it, as well as the embroideries that go around it. That'll be a different video. So we'll put this aside. Wait, do for that. All right, so the next step I'm going to do with this is going to be to embroider the missing piece on here, work on the design for here, and embroider this. And then I'll get back and we'll see about putting this down on the back on the fabric. In case you're interested, this is what the fabric, you get these, there's 10 to a package. It's fabric, cotton fabric on a paper backing. And there's 10 to a package, and I get these from Joann's. Okay, as I said, there was a problem cutting out the fabric, that there was not enough for this area down here, that I would have to shorten the design. So I did that. What I did was I cut out templates for the 2 parts. This hoop has to go this way, this hoop has to go this way for it to fit the hoop. And this is where the 2 pieces meet. This is the new modified design. The question now is, do I have enough fabric still? So this is the piece that I have left, and yeah, I've turned it different directions to see, and this is the best, this way it fits the best. So let me line it up here, and I'll show you if this will work or not. All right, so I have this pinned down, and I have this pinned down, and then what I did was, with the templates, I lined them up. This trim will come down into here, so I lined the edge of this up with this edge up to see that it comes into this area, and the same on this side, to make sure that my templates are lined up where they're supposed to be. And again, this has to meet this, so, all right, so here's the fabric that I have, and this is the way it looks like. The watermark goes this way, up and down. Though I would have done it this way if it fit better, because you're going to see very little of this fabric because of the embroidery. Nobody's going to really notice the watermark or not. If I needed to do it that way, I would have done it that way. All right, so this is what's going on here. It's still not quite fitting, but this is the best fit I can get from this. If you look at the edge, there's still some fabric I can turn out here, but this is in the salvage. The design sticks out a little bit here. And I moved the fabric so the design sticks out a little bit here, not much. Now I can use another piece of fabric or even some of the scrap fabric under here if I need to, but both this piece and this piece here, are you showing up on here? No. Let me show you. Let's turn it this way. All right, so there's a piece sticking out this side here, and there's a little piece here. But both of those pieces are these three-dimensional things. And those, if there's nothing underneath that but the stabilizer, and this is stabilizer, nothing underneath that but the stabilizer, that'll be fine. And also in those places I'm going to need to put craft foam or felt or something to lift it up anyway. So I really don't need to have the fabric in those spots. So I think I can get away with this, but it's going to be really tricky to make sure that I get this lined up exactly in the hoop. That I have this fabric right where it needs to be in the hoop. So the blue line that marks the edge of this design here is going to have to be right at the edge of this. Now, in this hoop, because this is such a small piece, I can pull this down in the hoop and make sure I get it in the right spot. So this will be lined up right with the crosshairs, the blue line with the crosshairs, and then I should be okay. Everything should fall where it's supposed to. All right, so that's the way that's going to work. These designs will work the way I have them now. I'm just going to have to line them up very, very carefully. And I'm not going to do either of these two pieces till I finish the angel piece, because if I find any mistakes in this area, excuse me, because this is almost exactly the same design as what's down here. So if I find any mistakes in this, I'll make those changes before I go to do either this piece or the other one, these two missing pieces on the front. So the angel, the back piece is I always sew first, looking for things that need to be changed. Because when I go to do this, I'm going to have one chance at it. And so any mistakes, anything that's not right, I have to correct before I get to these pieces, because I won't have a second chance. I've only got so much fabric to work with here and this piece for the other side. So so that's what I decided to do here. And when I go to sew this off, I will film it and show you how it works, if it works. Hopefully it works.